You know, when you think about ancient civilizations in the Americas, one name pretty much always pops up first: the Inca. But what if I told you the real story of people in this part of the world is so much older, so much bigger, and way more complex than just one empire? Okay, let's get into it and really uncover the deep, deep history of the Americas way before the Inca ever showed up. Okay, just picture this for a second. You've got a royal palace literally tucked between two massive mountain peaks, almost 8,000 feet up in the air. That's Machu Picchu, built by the Inca way back in the 15th century. It is an absolutely breathtaking symbol of power and genius, a place that really feels like the start of some grand, epic story. But that gets you thinking, right? Were the Inca actually the beginning of the story? Or were they more like the final, incredible chapter in a book that was already thousands of years old? Trust me, the answer to that changes everything about how we look at this ancient world. All right, so to get to the bottom of this, let's start with what we know. Let's take the incredible Inca Empire and put it into its proper historical context. And look, let's be clear, the Inca were unbelievably impressive. I mean, from their capital city of Cuzco, they built this massive empire that stretched all the way down the western side of South America. They were absolute masters of engineering and administration. They totally deserve their legendary status. But, and this is the key, they weren't the first, not by a long shot. The Inca were really just the last in a very long line of civilizations in the Andes. They were basically standing on the shoulders of giants, building on thousands of years of culture and knowledge that came before them. So, if the Inca were just the last chapter, then who wrote all the pages that came before? Let's zoom out a bit and see just how diverse and ancient this whole hemisphere of cultures really was. This timeline right here, this is what really puts it all in perspective. Just look at the Olmec, kicking things off around 1200 BCE. That is almost 3,000 years before the Inca even thought about building Machu Picchu. The Chavin, the Maya, they were ancient history by the time the Inca Empire got going. I mean, to say the Inca were late to the party is a huge understatement. They showed up after millennia of parties had already happened. And the diversity is just mind-blowing. You've got the Olmec in Mesoamerica, creating these super complex calendars. The Maya are building massive cities and developing their own writing system. Way down south, the Moche are making this incredible, distinct art. And then all the way up in North America, in Ohio, the Adena culture is building giant earthen mounds. This wasn't just one story. It was 1,000 different stories all happening at once, across two entire continents. So you have to wonder, right? What was the spark? What incredible innovation allowed all these small, scattered groups of people to finally settle down, grow their populations, and build these huge, complex societies in the first place? Well, the answer really comes down to agriculture. But not just any kind of agriculture. The story of civilization in the Americas is completely tied to one single revolutionary crop. You can kind of see how it all unfolded. For thousands and thousands of years, people were just nomadic hunter-gatherers, always on the move. But then, around 9,000 years ago, they started playing around with domesticating plants. And the true game changer was maize. Once maize-based farming really took hold, people could finally stop moving. They could build permanent villages. And those villages became the foundation for literally everything that came next.
In maize, or corn as we know it, is not your average plant. Some people have called it humanity's single greatest feat of genetic engineering. Think about it. It can't even reproduce on its own. Its seeds have to be planted by people. It's this incredible crop born from a partnership between humans and nature, slowly and carefully cultivated over generations from a wild grass called teosinte into the powerhouse food source it is today.
And so, who were the geniuses behind this agricultural revolution? Well, it was none other than the Olmec and the Maya. They were some of the very first to figure out the full potential of maize, and it literally fueled the growth of their gigantic cities and complex cultures. Okay, so we've seen how these amazing civilizations grew, but that still leaves one giant question on the table. To really get the full picture, we have to go back even further, like to the very, very beginning of the human journey into this new world. So now let's trace the footsteps of the very first Americans. It's a journey into a world that looked completely different from the one we know today. Okay, so picture this. During the last great ice age, so much of the planet's water was frozen solid in these massive glaciers that sea levels dropped like crazy. This drop exposed a huge land bridge we now call Beringia, connecting Asia to North America. And this wasn't some tiny ice path. It was a vast open landscape people could actually live on. So sometime between 9 and 15,000 years ago, groups of nomadic hunter-gatherers started to cross this bridge. They were probably following huge herds of animals like mammoth and bison. And over thousands of years, traveling by both land and by sea, these pioneers and their descendants just spread out, eventually populating both North and South America, from the freezing Arctic all the way to the tip of Patagonia. So, when we pull all these different threads together, what does this ancient American world actually look like before Columbus shows up in 1492? Well, by the time Europeans arrived, this was not some empty wilderness. Not at all. The estimated population of the Americas was somewhere between 50 and 100 million people. To put that in perspective, that's about the same as the population of Europe at the time. It was a thriving, bustling world. Here's the bottom line. The world that Europeans discovered wasn't new. It was the result of a human story that was already more than 15,000 years old. It was a hemisphere filled with countless distinct peoples, speaking over 2,000 different languages and living incredibly rich and diverse lives. So the Inca and their incredible creation at Machu Picchu, they weren't the beginning. They were the culmination, the grand finale. What we so often remember is really just the final page of an absolutely epic saga. And that leaves us with a pretty cool thought, doesn't it? What other amazing chapters of this incredible story are still out there, just waiting for us to discover them?